What's up, guys? May 5th, 2021. And Raptors season, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it looks like it's done with. I don't want to spend too much time on it because it's been a great ride, and I just feel like at this point, we just kind of have to enjoy it. It's done with. We know that they're not a title contender. Looks like they're not even a playoff team at this point, and that's that. Things I did want to get into good teams in the NBA, great teams in the NBA. Now, Utah and Phoenix right now, both with 47 wins. And when Lamar when Lamar came on here with Igor a few maybe 3 weeks ago now, I kind of planted the seed that I thought that Phoenix was one of the best teams in basketball, and not just one of those teams on paper like a lot of people are kind of doing with Utah that are kind of calling them pretenders. We've seen this with Chris Paul before, where his teams, whether that be Houston a few years ago with James Harden, and unfortunately had that hamstring injury in Game 7. We've talked about that so many times that the three of us kind of agree that if Chris Paul was healthy, they probably would have beat the Warriors there in Game 7. He wasn't, and they lost. We saw him take an OKC team that I don't want to say was trash, but they were not that good of a team. He brought them to the playoffs last year in a tough matchup against Houston and ended up losing the first round. And now we're seeing it with Phoenix. We're seeing a team that has a lot of depth. And the points that I brought up when those guys were on the show was just I love how versatile the team is. With Bridges, Jay Crowder, even Sarge coming off the bench, they have a lot of guys that can defend, a lot of long defenders, guys that can really move their feet, guys that can switch. And with Chris Paul, what he's brought to every team he's been to is just some stability. Guys, similar to like what I used to say about Kawhi when he got here in Toronto. Guys were just kind of able to sit into where they really should be. Not as maybe a one option, but then you fall back to a two. A two falls back to a three, and so forth. Just takes the pressure off a lot of these guys. And we're really seeing that with Devin Booker as well. With Booker kind of, assuming the status of being an all-star this year, and then also DeAndre Ayton, who I don't think he's going to be a star in the league, but he's definitely not a bust, and he's a serviceable player and a pretty good setter. He has limitations for sure, but he's still improved defensively and also shown us that he can finish at the rim, block some shots, and hit that mid-range jumper. So I do think that Phoenix, to be honest, is a sleeper. Now I planted this seed, like I said earlier, because now they're tied for first, just one game back in the loss column, tied in 47 wins with them. But that being said, I don't know. Is it too late to kind of predict them as a team that could win the title? Yeah, that's what I said. They can win the title this year. And I wouldn't really be that surprised with as wacky as the season's been. Last year we saw with the bubble and when COVID first kind of started that a lot of these teams were different. And in the bubble, you saw teams like Miami and Boston go to the Eastern Conference Final when a lot of teams didn't have them going that far, especially Miami. Um, but that being said, I wanted to kind of just look through the West here because the East I'll do it a different day. But so Utah's still sitting first. It's going to be interesting to see when Mitchell comes back. And really in the playoffs, if they're going to have any excuses this year if they battled early or not. Phoenix, I love them. The Clippers. Kawhi Leonard's missed 16 games this year. Paul George has missed 16. And they have the third best record in the West at 44-22. I think that we have to give these guys some credit, give Tyrone Lue some credit, because they're just such a deep team. When you look at them, guys like Nick Batum, who, to be honest, are probably not going to get a contract offer last offseason, has come in. He's done a pretty decent job. Marcus Morris, once he's come in, he's really stabilized them, given them some shooting. And the Clippers are sitting in first place in terms of three-point percentage and free throw percentage. Those are two numbers that, to be honest, are probably not going to go away anytime soon. And numbers that you want to see trending in that direction if you're going to be a playoff team. Getting to the line, shooting the three. That's really what this league has become. It's the long shots and the close shots at the rim, and when you're not finishing at the rim, getting fouled. Denver. Now, Denver sitting in fourth. A lot of people thought that, with the Jamal Murray injury, that, they were going to kind of taper off, but Jokic is really showing once again that he is, the MVP of this season, with, obviously Embiid going to be in that mention as well. I like Denver. I don't know how far they can go. Michael Porter Jr., I've talked about it before. He's been absolutely incredible for them. But also Aaron Gordon. I think that his play in the playoffs, they're going to need him to step up offensively and not just be a guy that's going to kind of finish some garbage plays or some broken plays. They're going to need him to score, and he's been defending. He's been doing that his whole career, so I'm not too worried about that. Now we're getting into the teams here with Dallas, Lakers, Portland, Memphis, Warriors, Spurs, and even the Pelicans, who are sitting in 11th. a lot of teams here that, to be honest, are fairly interchangeable when you're going between fifth and ninth. Talking about Dallas, the Lakers, who LeBron had that quote saying that he doesn't think he's going to be 100% for the rest of his career. And I think that goes without saying, right? Like, especially with that high ankle sprain, I've had two of those really bad. And to be honest, I know I don't have the same technology as these guys do in terms of healing, but I wasn't playing ball for like 8 months. At least, at a level where the pain has really subsided. And LeBron's come back after 2 months and he's already taken time off because, he's just not recovering the same. Portland, they're sitting in seventh. Portland, to be honest, has never really scared me. They've been one of the worst defending teams in the league. I want to say since like Aldridge left years ago there. And those Portland's kind of another team where it's like if they lose in the first round again, or even I don't know in the second round, at what point do you kind of blow things up? Because Terry Stotts, I just read today, is rumored to be on the hot seat, and I love the guy. Like he's been a pretty good coach for them. But what's the ceiling? How many times can you run it back and still get the same results? I don't know how much longer they can do it. Not too old, like Dame's 30 and CJ's 29, but they just have so many guys on this team. Nurk's never healthy, like never. He's hurt every year. Igor knows all about that, fantasy guy. But there's just, I don't know, Covington, like they have so many guys. They got it, Powell, who's most likely going to walk in the offseason. They traded away Trent for him. Carmelo, he's putting up numbers. Defensively, he's a liability. And we know all these guys are liabilities because they're the worst defensive team in the league. That's not going to help them in the playoffs. Memphis, I think that they're also, I don't want to call them pretenders because I don't think anybody really thinks at this point they're going to do too much, but they're in eighth right now. Golden State's just one loss back behind them, 33 and 32, and Golden State's 33 and 33. I really hope that, doesn't really matter, but I hope that Golden State can slip into eighth. That play in there is going to be kind of tough between, right now it's Golden State, the Spurs, and the Pelicans. Any of those teams, to be honest, can kind of catch fire and win 2 games. The Pelicans have a lot of injuries, which kind of worries me. A lot of guys have been in and out of the lineup. But once again, with all of these teams, I don't think anybody's really going to upset the teams at the top. Even though Utah and Phoenix they're not playoff tested per se. Utah a little bit more. I just don't think the Spurs there. I don't know how dangerous we can really say that they are. The Pelicans, once again, one of the worst defensive teams in the league. I don't see that really happening. And the Warriors, we all know that Stephen Catch Fire's been doing it all year, and I think that they are a threat to kind of beat anybody, to be honest, in the West, because nobody's really been healthy. You even look at the Clippers. They're, to be honest, probably the only team outside of Utah and Phoenix that hasn't had too many injuries. And even with Utah, Mitchell's been out. He's going to be back and he should be 100% for the playoffs. But Denver missing Murray. If they lose at all in the first round, can't really say they're going to be shocked. With Dallas, I really expected them to be better this year. They started off really bad, below 500, battling 500 the whole time. Now they're 37 and 28. To be honest, like Luka's been great as usual this season. I still think he complains too much. Mark Cuban might say that's blasphemous, but I don't want to see that from one of the guys going to be an MVP of this league. You're not going to get every call. Doesn't matter who you are, unless you're LeBron. You're not going to get every call. And I don't like really his body language. I think that it's kind of not just hurting him, but also his teammates. Maybe when they get to the line, the rest might be blowing or biting their whistle a bit more than they should. Other than that, yeah, Sacramento's done. They're still technically alive, just 1 game back of the Pelicans, but I don't see really them doing too much. And then, of course, OKC, they're just dying to lose games. Same with Houston. And Minnesota, got to give them credit just in the sense, I can't believe I'm saying this, but they're actually, trying to win games and they're battling there every night. So I think that, I don't know if I want to say the future is bright, but at least you have something there with Edwards. With Russell, it's going to be tough because, he's been who he's been his entire career. Another guy that can kind of score buckets, but one of the worst defenders on the team, and with Towns as well being one of the worst defenders. Although he's elite offensively, I just don't know really what the future is. You can't miss on another pick like they did with Culver a few years ago, and hopefully for them they keep the pick and they don't send it off to Golden State, which would in that terrible Wiggins trade. But that's going to wrap it up for today.